Welcome to Across the Table. At Across the Table, we believe in board gaming as a positive source of entertainment that helps bring people together. And this is why we've chosen Pandemic as our first board game to review for our channel. Pandemic is a great cooperative board game that's able to be played by any skill level. So let's get into the game itself, and we'll go more into the actual difficulty and everything of the game. So Pandemic was released in 2007 by Z-Man Games with the designer Matt Lecoq, and it is for 2 to 4 players. The gameplay lasts between 45 minutes to an hour depending on your skill level and how well you know the game. Or it could last maybe 5 minutes depending on how quickly the diseases take over. So we're going to start diving into the game. As I mentioned, Pandemic is great for table talk. So since it is a cooperative game, there's going to be a lot more engagement with all of the players that are going to be playing than you would normally see in a regular game where you're playing against other people. And that's what makes, I think, Pandemic such a great game for beginning gamers. Just because for anyone that's not used to a strategy game, with it being cooperative, it allows for the other teammates to be able to help a new player walk through their turn. And then you can also see the other players who are a little bit more advanced in strategy games understand how they're coming up with their ideas, what they're using to determine what would be best to do for their turn, and then use those mechanics of coming up with the strategy for other games later on down the road when you want to play something different. So that makes it great for all levels. You know, Pandemic can be good for a beginner, and it can also be good for a more advanced gamer. So let's kind of dive into the game. First, I'm going to talk about the rulebook. I think out of all the games I've played, Pandemic probably has one of the best rulebooks about explaining the game, setup, and all the little nuances that you might encounter within the game. When you first open up the book, it gives a nice 6-step tutorial on where everything's laid out, how to set up the game, how many player cards to give to each player based on how many players you have, and walks you through a quick setup of the game. And then the rest of the book itself goes really in depth on your actions that you can perform, how to encounter certain circumstances when they arise, and any of the little nuances, like I was saying, that you might have to deal with. Because with some games, they don't really explain those, and then you kind of have house rules for the players that you play with. So you could be playing with a different group of gamers in the same game, and there might be little rules that are different because they weren't ever really explained. And in Pandemic, you don't really have to worry about that. So if you read through the rule book, which it has great pictures if you're more of a visual person, to see how things are performed. And now on the back, it gives a nice overview of all the roles that you might have for playing Pandemic. Now this is a new game. I personally never owned Pandemic. All of my friends had it, so I never really bought it. I had bought some other cooperative games, so that way we had multiple cooperative games to be able to play. So I just invested in a different one. But for you, I bought a new one just so you can see what it comes like right out of the box. So one thing that you will notice that's a little different than if you did watch our overview video is that On the Brink came out with, it's an expansion of Pandemic, came out with these awesome containers, and we ended up using those for the video, but the actual original game has the cubes in little baggies. And this is my only little pet peeve about this game, just because I'm impatient and I don't like having to either grab little individual cubes out of the bag or dumping them off all over the table. I'm a little OCD, so like seeing everything scattered everywhere just kind of isn't very appealing to me. But the pieces themselves, they're nice molded plastic. They're great, and I think they did a good job with the pieces. So we can get those out of the way. The board itself, I think they did a great job. It's a nice, clean-looking board. It's very firm, so you don't have to worry about it, getting destroyed too easily. And then one thing I really like, why I said it's really good for beginner games, it lays everything out for you. So it has where the infection deck goes, where your player deck goes, a nice counter for the infection rate, and then a nice counter for your outbreaks on the side. And then finally, another great point is that the actual steps for each player's turn, from the actions to drawing player cards and finally infecting cities, are built onto the board. So if you ever forget, what your next step is, you can refer to the board, and then it explains what you need to do for your turn. And finally, the epidemic cards, which I haven't opened these yet, but the epidemic cards explain as well what the steps are to perform while resolving an epidemic. So there's 3 steps, and on an epidemic card, it explains, of course I opened the wrong one, it explains those 3 steps for you to understand what you need to do. So the game pretty much walks you through on its own of what you need to do to actually play the game. So like I was saying, the epidemic cards have all 3 steps on them. The cards themselves are great. They're like a normal playing card, so they're gonna last a long time. My recommendation for any kind of game that has cards in it, though, card sleeves, it's a couple cent investment, but it'll really help with the longevity of the game and make it last a little bit longer. Because you play a card game long enough, the cards start to get a little frayed and a little destroyed. And finally, the game itself isn't that hard, but that doesn't mean that it's not difficult. So the setup and the mechanics of the game are simple, but the actual ability to win is actually quite complicated. So with that said, about 9 out of 10 times you're probably going to lose, but there's a great mechanic within this game that even if you lose, for some reason it's still fun. I mean, like I said, most of the games I've played of this I've lost, but because it has that cooperative feel to the game, to where you're communicating, the game is more about collaboration, and if you lose, you lose. But it is pretty cool when you win, because it never really happens. So that about sums up my thoughts on this game. To give a little overview of the game, setup's probably around 60 seconds, especially if you divvy up the things among the people that are playing the game. The game length is going to be between 45 minutes to an hour. For the difficulty, we ranked it 5 scruffy beards out of 5, just because, like I said, the mechanics of this game are built towards the diseases to win. So the chances of you winning are very slim, but that doesn't mean that the game isn't fun. And replayability, we also ranked 5 scruffy beards out of 5, because pretty much every game that you play is going to be different. From the initial infecting of cities, how the epidemic cards are laid out throughout the player deck, and then how the outbreaks spread due to the fact that if you have an epidemic, of how you have to shuffle the cards back in. So every time you play, it's never going to be the same, and I think it has a huge replayability factor. It's not necessarily a game you're going to want to play every day, but every time you do play it, it is going to be different. The complexity of the game, we gave 2 scruffy beards out of 5. It's not a hard game. It's got a very simple layout to it, very simple mechanics, so it's very good for beginners to learn. And then finally, overall, we give the whole game a 4 out of 5 scruffy beards. I think it's a great game. It's a lot of fun. And like I said, it's really good for helping bring people together, especially new people, and then your advanced gamers too. So it's a game where you can have people that are learning how to play strategy games, and then your long-term gaming friends who might be able to jump in and play that game together. So it's not overwhelming for the beginners, and the advanced players still have something to overlook and have a lot of fun with. So that's our across the table review of Pandemic. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, share with your friends, give it a like, follow us on Facebook at Across the Table. Go to our website acrossthetable.net, and then subscribe to us on YouTube. All the support that we can get is really appreciated. In any of our social media, just give us a heads up of what you thought of this video. We really appreciate your feedback. It helps us be able to develop these videos and give you the best video that we can possibly develop. So let us know what you thought. Hope you enjoyed it, and we hope to see you next time at Across the Table, where we help you discover and learn your next favorite game.